This is my first report on Wijk aan Zee 2014. It's going to be a really exciting tournament. We have some of the strongest players in the world playing and representatives of the older generation of elite players and the younger generation coming through. For example, Hikaru Nakamura. We have Sergei Karyakin, Wesley So, Richard Rapport, a very exciting player from Hungary, and Levon Aronian, of course, about to play in the candidates in March, and, well, others. But the first game I'd like to look at is the game between Fabiano Caruana, just 21 years old, and Boris Gelfand, who's been playing very well over the last couple of years, but 45 years old. Okay, let's crack on with the game. Caruana played pawn to e4, and the players went into a Najdorf variation, one of Gelfand's favourite openings going back years, and the players actually did battle in this opening earlier in the year in the Tar Memorial, and Gelfand won an absolutely beautiful game. So, well, no doubt Caruana was ready with an improvement. Now, Caruana played f3 here. He's basically looking to go into a kind of English attack, but instead of playing bishop e3, he's gone f3. Now, bishop e3 allows this variation with knight g4, which is a real speciality of Gelfand's. He played it very recently successfully against Michael Adams in the London Chess Classic, and he also defeated Hikaru Nakamura earlier in the year. So f3 sidesteps that one. I mean, there are pros and cons to playing f3 and bishop e3, but Gelfand decides just to go into the kind of main line of the English attack. So there we are, they've transposed directly. And here, bishop e7 was played by Gelfand in this game I mentioned, and this was the absolute main line of this opening with knight d7 and so on. Here, my favourite move is a5. That's my recommendation on my DVD. But okay, Gelfand played the absolute main line here and won a beautiful game. Well, incredibly complex game. But today he played h5, which is another very respectable variation against the English attack. Black, of course, is preventing white playing g4, but there can be drawbacks to playing the pawn to h5, but not at the moment anyway. Caruana played knight d5, so yeah, I mean, this takes the game in a very different direction to this kind of this two attacks playing against each other. So now we have this pawn structure where white very often tries to push through with c5, and black has this kingside pawn majority, which can often be very useful indeed. Okay, let's see how things developed. So it's not yet clear which side white is going to castle. And here, Caruana actually had this position before against Dominguez in the Thessaloniki FIDE Grand Prix. And Dominguez played queen to c7, and the game went like this. Very complex game, but I think Caruana in this endgame actually had a good position, because he managed to bring this knight round here. Although Caruana actually lost, I think he was doing pretty well, so no doubt he would have been happy to repeat that one. Instead, Gelfand played simply with bishop g7, and Caruana committed his king to the king side. And now, I mean, this position has been seen before. For example, in the game Leko against Wojtaszek, Leko played knight a5 and played like this, and black broke through the middle. Well, the game ended in a draw, but quite complex. Now, instead of this, Caruana played a new move, rook c1. Now, this is very subtle indeed. Now, clearly, he's hoping to support the advance of the c-pawn. So, but why didn't he play c4 straight away? Well, I think the idea is that in this case, black is going to advance here, or maybe just play b6 and knight here. Okay, it's a reasonable way of controlling white's expansion. Now I think one of the ideas of rook c1 is just to delay the advance of the c pawn, because in this case, after a5, we can perhaps block this, and this diagonal is still open, and the bishop finds a very nice square on b5. I think that this might be one of the ideas. But, I mean, the question is, why doesn't black play e4 here? This looks to me like a very natural response. Now, no doubt Caruana was ready for this. I mean, there are several ways of meeting it. I mean, maybe you could just allow black to take here and recapture with the g pawn. That's interesting. Now, the pawn covers important squares here. And, well, who knows, maybe white could even contemplate later on some kind of attack on the king side with f4, f5. But okay, this is a very different situation. There's also this, and this can become very complex indeed, and now simply pushing on with f5, and that's very sharp indeed. No doubt Caruana was ready with something. But instead of playing e4, Gelfand waited with b6. Now, this kind of preempts c4. If c4 comes, then of course black is ready. I mean, maybe you play a5 then, or knight there, and black has no difficulties, I think. So instead, Caruana switched to the king side. Very interesting strategy, and here went for it with g4. Okay, it's becoming very sharp indeed. Gelfand took, and now he went backwards with knight h7. Now, I don't like this move. This looks too passive to me. I mean, I think he should have maybe just played knight c5, and I mean, this knight, if it's pushed, can always come back to d7. And it's not absolutely clear to me how white is going to make progress there. Now, the other thing, of course, is if g5, then the knight has a square on h5. So I don't think white would do that. I mean, maybe he would simply play king g2 and switch the rook across. I mean, this is dangerous. I mean, another question is, did Gelfand actually need to exchange on g4? Now, in that case, white could be threatening to gain space there because black doesn't have the h5 square for the knight. But okay, these are tough questions. Gelfand spent a long time in this position and ended up going backwards, and now Caruana really takes control. So you can see that black's minor pieces here are really cramped. So white, I think, has a positional advantage. So Gelfand tried to break out. Of course, this was taken, and now white has a very simple plan of gunning down at the pawn on g6, and there are lots of pieces that white can use to hit that pawn. Gelfand tried to exchange pieces, but it's a pretty easy position for white to play now. And there we go. So now there are two pieces attacking here, and the queen is ready to come in as well. Rook a7. So now it's true, the 7th rank is clear, so the rook can swing across. But look at these pawns on the queen side. They're both rather vulnerable, so Gelfand has to be rather careful that he doesn't switch too quickly. The rook came over. I was a little bit surprised by that move, actually, but well, the point was that after rook f7, now the queen can switch in without fear of losing the f-pawn. And the other reason is that instead of rook f7, if queen f6, then you could simply swipe a pawn off here, and again the pawn is covered. So rook f1 is a subtle move. Okay, rook f7 played, queen h6. I mean, this is very easy for white to play. And now, great move from Caruana. You can see that really all white's pieces are contributing to the attack in one way or another. The only piece which isn't is the knight here, so he swings that across. Excellent move. And now I think the writing is really on the wall. Once that knight hits e4, it's looking at all these squares, that weak pawn on d6, and at the king side as well. And now, very simple move from Caruana. He just exchanges off that active rook on f4, or would like to exchange it off. And now, for example, if Gelfand tries to head for an endgame, then the knight attacks those weak pawns, and, well, I think technically this should be a winning position for white. b5 played by Gelfand, stopping that idea, but now the knight came into e4, and I think black is probably just lost here. But Gelfand's next move was disastrous. He was running very short of time. Caruana was playing really quickly, but that was the end, because now the g6 pawn dropped. Clearly Gelfand was hoping just to exchange some pieces, bring his rook across, giving up that pawn, but there's simply a winning move here, knight g5. And in this position, Gelfand resigned. Shocking defeat for him. Of course, queen takes knight, checkmate is threatened. And, well, if queen takes, then we take the queen, the king comes here, mate is still threatened, the pawn here is threatened, the rook is threatened to come across here, and that's too much for black, so understandably Gelfand resigned. So an excellent victory for Caruana, and really he hardly broke stride in this game. Round one, the first round in a tournament, is often very difficult, and it looked like Gelfand really didn't have his touch today at all. But early days, there are 11 rounds in this tournament, and do join me for my further reports on this Wijk aan Zee tournament of 2014. Thanks for watching.